We're going to talk about birth, aging, sickness, and death. Okay, so let's do our visualization of all the Buddhas and all the sentient beings. So really think of the people that are conducting the war right now, that are so harmful to others and also creating the cause for their own horrible future rebirths. And let's think that we're leading them in taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, them and everybody else, all the people who are dying too. So although we can't get everybody involved in the war, both the perpetrators and the victims and the spectators and everybody involved together and teach them the Dharma, and they are not necessarily interested in it, at least not in this life. But when we imagine leading them in taking refuge and in generating bodhicitta, we're planting seeds in our own mind so that when we meet them in a different lifetime, when they're more receptive, then we'll be able to help them and teach them and lead them and guide them on the path. So it's important we generate that motivation now, and it'll ripen in some future life. Because if we just throw up our hands and say it's useless and I can't do anything, then for sure, even in future lives, we won't have that connection with them and be able to help them. But at least if we do this in this lifetime, we're establishing some connection. So we want to connect actually with all the living beings. So make sure that your bodhicitta includes each and every living being. So I've seen my teachers create these kind of karmic links with other sentient beings. Sangha Rinpoche, the previous one, when we took him to the beach in Southern California, there were sea anemones. Those are the ones that, yeah. And so Rinpoche had his mala, and he would drop it into their mouths, and they would close. And then he'd pull it out and he'd go to the next one. And like that. So he was making some kind of connection. He was very, focused on doing that, making that connection with those sentient beings. Zopa Rinpoche, when he's driving in a car, if there's a roadkill, he stops the whole car. Doesn't matter how many people are waiting for the teaching. Car stops, he gets out and he does prayers for the roadkill. Yeah. So, it could be cats or dogs or raccoons or whatever. So making that connection with those living beings. And so that's what we do too. When we imagine the sentient beings around us, when we say mantras over bugs, when we say mantras to the kitties. And, don't poo-poo it, because that could be the way that we actually got to meet the Dharma too. Sometimes I think, how in the world did somebody like me create the virtue to meet the Buddha's teachings and to meet really excellent teachers? And I think maybe I was a flea. My teacher shemmed up in some previous life, and he said some mantra and threw me on my way. Or maybe if he was a really bodhisattva, put me back in so I could be warm and eat lunch. The Tibetans tell a story of, what was it? It was a scorpion. Because if you've ever seen them debate, sometimes not always, they'll stand in a row according to the classes, So the little boys here, and then the next one. Okay. And so there's a story of one monk who was studying, and he started out with the little ones, and he was a great debater, and then next class, he was really good debating next class. So he got through many of the classes, really, really good debater. And then he hit another class, and all of a sudden, he couldn't debate very well. And so everybody was really puzzled by it. Why was it that he was so excellent before, and now he couldn't, figure anything out? So there was one of the lamas there had psychic abilities, and saw that in a previous life, that monk had been a scorpion, and he was out in the debating yard when the monks were debating, and he started with the little boys, and he heard all their debates, and on to the next class and the next class, and he heard all the debates, so he, had that all imprinted in his mind, all the points and how you do it. And then at one point he got to one class, which was the class where he was stumped, and somebody saw him and took him out and put him somewhere. So he never heard the debates from the higher classes. Yeah. So I say just hearing things puts some good imprint on the mind. Okay, so we're on page 188 still. Yeah, so on the reflection. So imagine your death and the dying process. Okay, so I think I mentioned before, there's two ways to meditate on death. One is the 9-point death meditation, and then the other one is imagining your own death. Okay, so I suggest, during this time, you could do it yourself, or it might be good if maybe not everybody has done the meditations, so it might be good if somebody led them, at some point, in different sessions, and really spend time on the points. They're quite, there's a lot to think about. And the one especially where you're imagining your death, you really think about it. You haven't been feeling well, and you went to the doctor, and they did a bunch of tests, and you came home, and then you got a phone call, and it was from the doctor, not the nurse. So then, and the doctor says, why don't you come in? And then uh-oh. Because if everything were okay, probably the nurse would have, the assistant would have called and said, you're okay. So then you go in and, you're talking to the doctor, and he gives you some diagnosis. So think of, maybe it's kidney disease or liver disease or cancer or, who knows what. And you got that diagnosis, and you're shocked, and, and how are you going to feel? And when you leave the doctor's office, where are you going to go? Are you prepared to go home, to wherever you live and be with other people? Or are you going to want to be alone, and figure it out? And when you are with other people next, are you going to tell them? And then how are you going to deal with all their reactions? And then as time goes on and all your friends really love you, but everybody is giving you advice about the latest thing to cure cancer. Yeah. It's like you mix Clorox with aromatherapy and add some sugar, and it's definitely going to work. And, that's what people do, isn't it? And then there's this great clinic in the middle of Kenya, in the animal reserve that you can walk out to, and the poop of the hyenas has something in it that will definitely cure you. Seriously, if you've known anybody who's been terminal, this is what happens. And so how are you going to deal with all these people? And how are you going to deal with the people you care about or that care about you, or people that, maybe care about you, but not in the way you want to be cared about. Like they're fussing over you all the time, but you don't like to be fussed over, or you like to be fussed over, but they're really cool and, barely say anything to you. So, you really go through all these permutations, and here you are dying of cancer, but there's everybody around you. Yeah. And how are you going to deal with all of that? And how are you going to deal with your own mind? And if you think memories are coming up in meditation now, that of things that you haven't thought of in years, what happens as, you're getting towards death and things are coming up? And and you feel really sorry for something that you said to a family member, let's say, so you know where the person is, and you feel really bad and you want to apologize, but you're too proud. You can't get yourself to go there and apologize, because they're going to start a whole conversation and then it's going to turn ugly, but you really need to say something. Yeah. So you go through all these things, and what are you going to do with your mind? And are you going to say something, or are you going to stuff it? And if you realize you can't stuff it, how are you going to say it? And are you sure the person is going to react the way you think they're going to react? Okay. So all these kinds of things and it really shows you the importance of keeping things clean, cleaning things up now. Don't wait until we have a terminal diagnosis, because we already have one. So, if we don't feel comfortable about things, we need to make amends, without procrastinating and saying, mañana, later. No. Yeah. And if there's something between you and somebody else that's really bothering you, yeah, and you still don't feel comfortable about talking about it with the other person, then really work on it in your own mind. Apply the thought training teachings. Yeah. Do that visualization of this being in a situation with that person, and the Buddha's there too, or Tara, whoever you want, and say the mantra and purify everybody involved in that situation. So you can kind of let go of all this stuff. And if there's people who've died already and you need to do this, you visualize them do the same thing. Okay? So, yeah. And then as you lose power and you become bedridden and weaker, and then you need help, going to the bathroom and help eating. And then, everybody comes and have you made your will? Do you have your advance directive? What did you put in your advance directive? Oh, I don't know if you should say that. Maybe you should say this in your advance directive. Are you really sure that you want to give your old t-shirts to that person? I think, this other person would really like the souvenir from you, and, don't wash them. They like the smell, and, that reminds them of you, and who are you going to give all these things to? And you have closets full of stuff. Yeah. Remember, you're Imelda Marcos incarnated, 2 feet and 200 pairs of shoes. Okay. What are you going to do with them? And all the clothes. And then you start thinking, well, which one should I be buried in? Well, your robes, of course. Yeah, what, you think you're going to get dressed up to lie in a casket? Yeah, you're going to wear robes your whole life and then put on a fancy dress or a nice suit. Yeah. But, watch what the mind does. Yeah. What happens if I die? My parents are alive. Yeah, they'll want me to have a dress or a suit lying in the casket. They're not going to want me to wear robes. What are their friends going to say? You make a face, whatever. Incredible things come up when people are facing death. Yeah. And where do you have all your money? And what are you going to do with it? And where is it invested? And let's make sure you have a list of it all. Yeah. Because otherwise it's going to be so inconvenient for people. They have to go through all your stuff. I had some friends, and they were kind of casual acquaintances with an older lady who lived down the street. And when she died, she had put in her will, she had not told them that they were to be the executors of her estate. And so, they went in her house, and, she had files, like we all have files. But, there were receipts from, buying things 15 years ago, and there were this and that, and comic strips, and just finding out, where her accounts were, and, if she had a will, and who she wanted to give the money and things to, if she had any money. It took them hours and days and weeks to do all of that. Yeah. Yeah, I told you my aunt died the morning of her son's wedding. So my cousin, the son, they just had the ceremony. And one of my uncles, who was also his uncle, came up, and who was a lawyer, and said, okay, now what are you going to do? With who's the executor, and what's going to happen with this, and what's going to happen, and started, getting into all these details. Yeah. And I'm going, oh my God, how's my cousin handling this? Just, his mom died. He just got married. Doing those two things. Each one is a big thing, but in the same day. And then our uncle going there and wanting to discuss the will and the estate and this and that, And you don't know what you're going to have to deal with and what people are going to say. So, yeah. So that's the first point in the death meditation. The first point in this reflection, Do the two meditations at different times, Yeah. And then based on, second point, based on how you have lived and on your habitual tendencies, what types of craving and clinging are likely to arise in your mind at this time? Yeah. What are you going to be thinking about? I'm dying. Why did they put me in this bed? I don't like this bed. Don't they know that I want to be in another bed? Yeah. Or you're dying and, oh, I'm so hungry. I want something to eat. Or I want somebody to hold my hand. Or I don't want anybody to touch me. But you can't say it, So, what are you craving? What are you clinging to? I don't want to leave my body. I don't know what's going to happen to me. What's going to happen to me? Am I ceasing? Because there's a sensation as if, because the different consciousnesses are absorbing. There's a cessation, like you're vanishing, you're disappearing into nothing. And that's terrifying for some people. Okay. Are you going to think about the Dharma at that time? Or are you going to go, oh, I really should have practiced. Yeah, they told me not to waste time into practice. And, I just got hung up with that cell phone that grew onto my hand. And I couldn't separate from it. And spent a lot of time with my phone. Yeah, so are you going to look back at your life and say, this was a life well lived? Many lives, I'm going to be living many lives on the path to full awakening. And this one, I did well. Yeah, I made some mistakes. I regret them. But I also rejoice at what I did. Are you going to think of your teacher at that time? Yeah, are you going to think of the Buddha? Are you going to think of compassion? Okay. Then the third point, what kinds of thoughts and aspirations would you like to have while you are dying? Okay. So in the process leading up to your death, don't just go from here I am healthy and then, go from the doctor's office. And what kinds of thoughts and aspirations do you want to have while you're processing this fact that, that you have a limited time? What do you want to aspire for? What do you want to think about? Recall that these will influence which karmic seeds are nourished and become renewed existence. So, we're very much creatures of habit. What we're familiar with this lifetime, then chances are those kind of thoughts and ideas will come up at death too. And then 4, how can you train in these thoughts and aspirations, the virtuous ones, now, so that your mind will be in a virtuous state then? Yeah. So how are you going to do that? Because we look and, in the morning, we all wake up and we make that determination every morning. And then we're out to lunch for, a good part of the day. So how can we keep bringing the mind back to something virtuous? So that's the reflection. Okay, now to go on to the 11th link, birth. So birth is the aggregates that exist in the nature of the ripening result, bound by afflictions, and joined to a new life in samsara, under the control of afflictions and karma. Okay, so birth is your aggregates, 4 or 5 aggregates, that exist in the nature of the ripening result. So remember, that's the realm you're going to be born into, the aggregates that you're getting. That's the ripening result. And that ripening result is not a fresh slate that you're starting out new, but rather, you're bound by afflictions. All your afflictions are coming with you. And you're joined to a new life in samsara. So you're taking a new body. You're in a new circumstance. You don't know anybody who's around you. You don't even know what realm you're in. You don't know what you're supposed to do. Nothing. Okay? So you're joined to a new life and under the control of afflictions and karma. Yeah? So, when you're in the bardo state, it's not like, you kind of look down and, okay, I'm taking applications for mom and dad, who wants to have me? Who am I going to go to? Oh, yeah, they look okay. They want to be good looking, so I'll take those parents, but gee, they fight a lot. No, let's put down. I don't want to go to them. Let's try another one. It's not like that. You're not window shopping for parents. Yeah. You're in the bardo and quite confused. And whatever seems attractive that's going to offer you some kind of security, you head towards that. Because that's the way we live, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so ordinarily, we think of birth as a baby coming out of the mother's womb, breathing on her own and beginning her life. So we always think of birth as, wow, something new, a new life, an adorable baby. Yeah. It's quite amazing looking at the pictures of the refugees, how many kids, because well over 1 million kids are refugees. But some of them, there's one guy, it's like his child was born 4 days ago. And the maternity hospital that they bombed 2 days ago, and one of, several of the women were injured. Well, they transferred them to another hospital. And one of the women had her baby the very next day. Yeah. And they were, she looked kind of worn out. Her husband was like really happy. But, yeah. For mammals, birth occurs when the consciousness joins with the fertilized ovum. The resultant consciousness, which is the second part of link 3. So remember, link 3 had the causal consciousness and the result consciousness. Okay, so the resultant consciousness, the second part of link 3, is the continuation of the mind stream of a being who has left its former body. Because I remember when we were talking about link 3, and calling it the consciousness, the causal consciousness, and then talking about the resultant consciousness. And some people got confused, like, well, what happened between the causal and the resultant consciousness? Was there no consciousness at all? Is this a separate consciousness that happens and goes out of existence? No, it's this, the link is marking, you have the whole continuum of consciousness. And it's saying, we're paying attention to this moment and we're paying attention to that moment. Okay? So it's like getting the building permit. Yeah. So Venerable Thubten had to take all the papers in. So there's this whole continuity, of her mind. And we're talking about the building permit and her role in the building permit. So what's she going to think about? The moment, that she took the application into the building department. Yeah. And then she's going to talk about the moment that several years later, where she picked it up. So during this whole time, she had a continuum. The building permit was a continuum. Nothing disappeared. It's just when she's going to talk about the story of the building permit, she's highlighting two specific times in those continuities. Okay. Okay. So this consciousness that's coming into the new body brings with it all the karmic seeds and latencies of afflictions that were present in the previous life. So wouldn't it be nice if when you died, your afflictions just ceased? Your karmic latencies and seeds just stop. No latencies of the afflictions either, kind of like they just all became non-existent. Yeah, you got a reboot. Yeah? So you got rebooted, you're going into your next life totally fresh. No, it's not like that. Yeah. Okay, so it's talking about bringing with the karmic seeds and the latencies of afflictions. Yeah. So what are the karmic seeds? Yeah. Yeah. They're abstract composites. What kind of obstructions are they? Afflictive. Okay. Afflictive obscurations. Yeah. Latencies of afflictions. Afflictions have seeds and they have latencies. What's the difference between the seeds of the afflictions and the latencies? And seems like the seeds of the affliction should come with too. Does that mean because I didn't mention it, that it didn't come with, that one got canceled? Yeah. So what are the seeds of the afflictions and the latencies of afflictions? Yeah.
So maybe the seed of the affliction is the potential for that affliction to arise again in the mind, whereas the latency is just like the residue of the afflictions ever being in the mind of that type. And the seeds of afflictions is a afflictive obscuration. The latencies of the cognitive obscuration, the obstruction to omniscience.
Yeah. Okay. So all that comes with you. Yeah. And you don't have to worry about it getting lost in the transition. Yeah. Or getting accidentally deleted. It just all follows us. So these will condition many aspects of the new being, which body with its specific genetic makeup that being will take rebirth in. Yeah, their upbringing, their experiences, and their tendencies in the new life. So you're bringing forth, the karmic seeds that will ripen into all of this. Does that mean that everything is predestined, that all the karmic seeds that are going to ripen in that life are kind of like on the top of the pile and they're already starting to ripen and and it's kind of predestined? No, doesn't mean that, okay? Because the cooperative conditions are very important in terms of which karma ripens. What you're thinking about, what you're doing, what you're aspiring for. And, because there's gazillions of karmic seeds in the mind. And so these cooperative conditions, lots of which are in this very life, will influence which ones ripen. So whenever I think about this, I think of my friend Teresa, who we sat next to each other at my very first Dharma course in Lake Arrowhead, California. And she had been to Kopan before. I, of course, hadn't. This was my first course. And then I decided I wanted to go. And she said, okay, we will I'll see you at Kopan, and we'll go down to Freak Street and have some chocolate cake together before the course starts. Because we'd become friends during this course. So I said, yeah, that'll be great. Okay. So I get to Kopan, and Teresa wasn't there, and she had other friends from the course, and we're all waiting for Teresa to come, and she's not there, and the course starts, and Teresa's not there, and everybody's getting really concerned. And then I don't know how we finally found out, if her parents told us, or I can't remember how we found out, but there had been one French guy who was in Thailand, and he was a serial killer, and he had killed Teresa in Bangkok. That's why she didn't make it to Kopan. And apparently she met him at a party. Everybody's a young traveler. What do? You go to parties with other young travelers and some of the local people, and, maybe you have something to drink or something to smoke or whatever. And, you're at a party and you meet people because you're social. So she met this guy, and he, invited her out to lunch the next day. She accepted the invitation, and they went out to lunch. And then the next thing they know about her, they found her body in a Bangkok canal. So it makes me think, what was going on in her mind? Because she clearly had one of those heavy karmas that cause an untimely death. So that karmic seed was already in her mind stream. But what made that karmic seed ripen then? Yeah. Well, it was the thing of going to a party. Yeah. So what's the motivation when you go to a party? What do you do at a party? Yeah. And then you meet some guy, and you think, oh, he looks nice, and he invites you out to lunch. Yeah. And what's your motivation for going? And, because when you look at this, all these kinds of decisions that she made led to the circumstance whereby, he was there and he could get his hands on her, and I don't know how he killed her. I don't know how it was. If he poisoned her or strangled her, I don't know. But yeah, but you can see, where she was and what she was thinking and what was going on impacted what karma ripened at that time. Yeah.
She was on her way to a virtuous activity.
Right. Yeah. And they say that when you're going to do something virtuous, every step you're going to do that is you're creating some virtue. But something else, came up in the mind during all of that. Okay. So it just, it's kind of like, well, if you drink and then you drive, yeah, aren't you kind of making it easier for any kind of karma that, causes an untimely death to ripen? Yeah, you're kind of setting yourself up for that when you do some of those things. Yeah, and some of us have talked about the things that we've done other times in our life that it's like a miracle that some kind of really heavy karma did not ripen at that time. Yeah, I mean, I can think of things that I did and wow, I was so fortunate. So somehow all the conditions, weren't there at that time. But then, for Teresa at that one time, they were. Yeah. So it makes us more aware of, all the intricacies of creating karma and karma ripening. And it makes us want to be more aware of what our motivations are. Yeah. Those seemingly insignificant decisions. Yeah. And how they are not actually always insignificant. So the link of birth lasts only a moment. From the second moment onward, aging or death occurs. Okay. Now, how long is a moment? The length of time it takes to accomplish something. They don't tell you what you're accomplishing. So whatever that moment was, in this case, I think it's probably a short moment, because you can be born and then, enter the fertilized ovum in the case of a human rebirth, and then leave the next moment, die the next moment. That's why it says aging or death, because if you leave that the next moment, then it's aging and death. Yeah. Then there's no aging. It's just birth and death. Yeah. Most of us have birth and then aging and death. Okay. Birth is the cause of aging and death. Yeah. Do we think birth was the cause of aging and death? No, I have all this wrinkled skin because I was at the beach. No, that's why I have so many things on my skin, because I was in the beach too often and never used suntan lotion. And, yeah, this hurts because I, got in an accident in high school or whatever it was. Okay. So we never think of birth as the cause of aging. Yeah. And that aging is a natural process that all of us are doing, and nobody is exempt from it. Yeah. But we like to think that it's only people who are older than us who have aged. Yeah. We are still young. Yeah. And look, we can walk faster than those old people. Walking up the S-curve, look how fast I can go. Yeah, I'm so much faster than those old nuns, who are like, getting up the hill. Yeah.
When you're old, you think you're younger than the old people.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then you're always looking, whose skin? Oh, my skin looks a little bit younger than that person's skin. And gray hair, I think they have more than I do. Yeah. When I shave my head, the gray is all in front, because I can see when I shave my hair that some of it's dark. So the whole backside must be dark. So these other people have, I look younger than them. Yeah. And the fact now that I have to use a toothpick after I eat, well, that's not really because I'm old. Yeah, I don't know, my gums are receding. Yeah, because the bones aren't doing anything. scums that they're receding. It's a natural process. It happens faster in some people than in others. Anyway, I hardly use the toothpick at all because they don't give me long enough to even eat my meal before they start the dedication. So I don't even have time to use the toothpick. So it's okay. I it's okay. It's not because I'm old. Okay, so, yeah. The link of birth lasts only a moment. From the second moment onward, aging or death occurs. Yeah. I thought it was 4'5'4". And she wanted to measure my height. And she said, you're 5'3". I said, oh, no, I got to stand up straight. Oh, yeah. Remember standing up straight? Oh, yeah. And then she said, okay, you're 5'3.5". No, I'm 5'4". No, I was never quite 5'4" at the start. I haven't shrunk yet. Yeah, my dad shrunk. Yeah, he shrunk a lot when he got old. I'm going to get taller. Yeah. Yeah, those slippers that you gave me, yeah, I'll get taller. They have some nice heels on them. Okay. Birth is the cause of aging and death. The Buddha makes the point that without being born, we would not age and die. So here's a quote. If, Ananda, there were no birth at all, anywhere, of anybody or anything, of devas in the deva state, of Gandharvas, of yakshas, of hungry ghosts, of humans, of quadrupeds, of birds, of reptiles, any of these to their respective state. If there were absolutely no birth at all out of any of these beings, then with the absence of all birth, the cessation of birth, could aging and death appear? The Buddha asked Ananda. And Ananda said, no, Venerable Sir. Therefore, and the Buddha kept on, therefore, Ananda, just this is the root, the cause, the origin, the condition of aging and death, namely birth. Yeah. So anything that we start to do or anything that comes together has to go apart. So any close relationship we have with anybody is not going to last forever. Yeah. It will, if it doesn't disintegrate before, then definitely at death. People are going to be separated. Many relationships disintegrate before. You think, I love you forever. I'm never going to leave you. You're never going to leave me. We're going to live happily ever after. For how long? Okay, so whatever comes together is going to fall apart. All your family heirlooms, all your favorite little things that you save, they're all going to fall apart. You look at lunch, one of our favorite activities during the day, and people work all morning to make lunch. Yeah, you spend hours making lunch. And then, how long does it take to finish it? 17 minutes. Yeah, for you. Some of us were only halfway through after 17 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. I keep thinking, how do we get those people to realize that some people eat slowly? That actually, on most days, half of the people have not finished their meal. And it's always the same people who eat fast. And then they never ring the bell loud enough when you're in the kitchen. And then they, you know, you come out and they, where were you? You know, we've been waiting for you. And then you start to sit down and you're still just starting to sit down and they're already at, Matita Pandya Shibya, so, and then you sit down, then you pick up your thing and they're already on to the next thing and you have to do this one. Oh, the suffering. Okay? So, we are, in society, birth is usually seen as auspicious, and people joyously welcome the birth of a child. We are blind to the inevitable result of birth, aging, and death. When we train our minds to see the complete picture of life, birth, aging, sickness, and death, our aspirations will turn towards liberation. As noted above, birth may happen in 4 ways. So this is from the ancient perspective. Birth from the womb, okay. Birth from eggs, so chickens and birds. Heat and moisture, bugs. Yeah, this is also in the West, you know, the way they thought bugs were born. And spontaneously. So hell beings, devas, and bardo beings are born spontaneously without having to go through a developmental process. So when you're born in the bardo, boom, there you are. They say maybe you look like an 8-year-old child, but I don't know, maybe some people look like 4 years old and some people look like 84 years old. I don't know. Don't ask me that. Okay? Okay, so all those beings are born spontaneously, so without having to, you know, grow up. Some hungry ghosts are born from the womb, others are born spontaneously. Animals are born from the womb, from eggs, and in the case of insects, from heat and moisture. There are instances of human beings being born in all 4 ways. So these are put in the scriptures. I don't know which scriptures you can find those. See, I'm answering your questions before you could ask them. Okay. So rebirth afflicts transmigrating beings because it brings aging and death, which are the essential dukkha of transmigrating beings. Yeah. Nobody looks forward to aging and death. Yeah. Maybe when you're a child, you look forward, you know, I can't wait until I'm 18 and then 21. And then after 21, it's like you're downhill. Okay. So questions or comments so far?
You heard any of your teachers say anything about the karmic connections that we may have with the parents of this life? Is there, or siblings?
Yeah, there's definitely some karmic connection. Yeah. So having known them in a previous life and having had some relationship with them in a previous life, something like that. Now they say sometimes you meet people the first time and you're instantly drawn towards them, or you're instantly like, oh, I don't like that person. So they say that could be because of karma in previous lives. And that's a good reason why it's not so good to judge people on first meeting them. Because if it's just due to some kind of karma in a previous life, it's, you know, it doesn't mean that they're really great, and it doesn't mean that they're really awful. The one thing you do want to do is make strong prayers to always meet completely qualified Mahayana and Vajrayana teachers. Yeah. And if you have teachers in this life that you're very close to or that are very important to you, to think really that you specifically want to meet them in future lives. Yeah. So like I make prayers to meet His Holiness. And, I mean, all my teachers, because I got lucky. I have incredible teachers, so I'd like to meet all of them in the future life. Other people, I see they have some difficulties with teachers. So, okay, yeah.
Would the latencies of afflictions be reduced during the next rebirth if we work on the afflictions in present life? Is there a continuation of seed of afflictions?
Yeah, both the seeds and afflictions, the seeds of afflictions and the latencies of afflictions continue on to the next life. But in terms of when we practice the path, we're first purifying the seeds of the afflictions, and those are abandoned first. And then after they're abandoned, the latencies of the afflictions are abandoned. Okay. Because they have different results. The seed of the affliction, this is all in the previous volume under the chapter of karma. The seeds of afflictions carry the potential so that the affliction can rise again in our mind. The latencies of the afflictions, are just like some leftover residue that it's the latency can also be called like habit or predisposition. And so it's the kind of thing that somebody may have purified their mind very, very well, but then they do kind of strange things. They say arhats, that some arhats will jump up in a tree and swing like a monkey. And it's the latency of some affliction or habit, from a previous life. So, I always thought, I'll get enlightened and have a tissue box, Yeah. In her left hand, she holds a thermos. In her right hand. Yeah. So, yeah.
Just for clarification, that sentence that says this consciousness brings with it all the karmic seeds and latencies of afflictions that were present in the previous life, but it's also got everything else in there too, right? It's not just the latencies from the previous life, it's the latencies of all since beginning of time.
Oh, it should say previous lives.
It says previous life.
Okay.
Yeah.
It should say previous lives. So birth according to the Pali tradition. So there is a debate beginning with the earliest Buddhist schools and continuing to this day about whether there is a period of time between the death of one life and the following rebirth. So this is a debate within the Theravada tradition. Okay. Although no clear statement is found in the Pali Sutras, some passages suggest that there is like a bardo state. It makes sense that in some cases, time is necessary for the suitable immediate conditions to come together for a birth that accords with the ripening karma of renewed existence. If the parents of the next life are in different places at the moment someone dies, a period of time is needed for them to come together again. Okay, so you die, but, mom's in I don't know, Australia, and dad is in Cameroon, so you got to wait for them to, hang out in the bardo. Come on, mom and dad, or, maybe if they never get together, then you get some, you have one of those small deaths in the bardo. and take different parents, maybe. Okay, birth, aging, sickness, and death have different meanings according to the context. In the Vibhanga, the second book of the Pali Abhidhamma, birth refers not to birth in one of the three realms, but to the arising of a mind moment. Mm-hmm. Aging refers to the impermanence intrinsic in all conditioned phenomena, not to gray hair, aches, and pains. Death is that mind moment's sensation, not the upcoming separation of body and mind. Each presentation is valid and useful, but they should not be confused with each other or used to invalidate the other. Okay? So like with all the other links, there's two ways that you could speak of them. Yeah. So you could talk about, birth, getting born in the body, aging, growing old in that lifetime, dying, leaving those aggregates and going into the next life. Or you could think of a mind moment, and it's arising, and then it's having the nature of impermanence, and then it's disintegration, it's cessation. Okay? So both of those exist. It's just different ways of talking about birth, aging, sickness, and death.
Sometimes I see that this link is written as old age, and I wonder. It just puzzles me sometimes because it seems
it's aging.
Yeah, the aging starts from conception.
Yeah, right. So it's the translator decided to translate it as old age, but it's just one word. Yeah, and it means aging. Yeah. Maybe the translator likes the old age, old age. Yeah. Yeah. And the definition of old age changes each decade. Yeah. Anything else?